Hi, and welcome to Coaching Voices podcast. I'm Pravin Sharma, an executive and leadership coach and consultant with over 2 decades of experience in the industry. I truly believe in the transformative power of coaching and the profound impact it can have on people's lives. In each episode, we dive into candid conversations with seasoned coaches, exploring what coaching really is and whether it's the right path for you. Together, we uncover how you can unlock your full potential and step confidently into leadership roles within your organization. In today's episode of Coaching Voices podcast, we are honored to have Dr. Lynette Reed join us. Dr. Reed is a visionary writer, researcher, and advisor specializing in human potential and organizational transformation. With experience mentoring individuals and teams across businesses, nonprofits, education, health agencies, government, and faith-based organizations, she brings a unique and holistic perspective to leadership and personal growth. With advanced degrees in spirituality, sustainability, and communication sciences, Dr. Reed has developed a transformative change model that empowers individuals and organizations to unlock their true potential. Beyond her professional accomplishment, she is an avid traveler, photographer, and a songwriter embracing the global connection that unites us all. Get ready for an insightful conversation as we dive into leadership, team building, and shared humanity that drives transformation. Let's get started. Hi, Dr. Reed. Welcome to Coaching Voices podcast. How are you today?
Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you for asking. And I really appreciate your time and dedication to our podcast. Let's get started by talking about your coaching journey.
Well, I was not one of the intentional coaches. I actually had a previous career and had some events happen. I did some traveling and met some people, and I was talking to some different people, and we kind of came to the conclusion that I wasn't really loving my other career, and so I decided to go back to school. And I got the doctorate in spirituality, sustainability, and interreligious dialogue. And people asked me, what are you going to do with that? And I was like, I really have no idea. So I was talking to a friend, and she had me come in and start working with some of the people in her organization to kind of help with this, what we were calling at the time kind of a spiritual component, but it wasn't a religious spiritual. It was more about interconnectivity. So that's kind of where it all started.
And how long ago was that?
Oh my gosh, that was 20 plus years ago. It was quite a while ago. Back then, spirituality really wasn't something that was talked about a lot in business. And so we never really called it that a lot because people tended to lean towards thinking religion, which can be a component of it, but it's not what spirituality at its root is. And so we started calling it human potential, corporate culture, things like that, because all those things that we talk about, all those soft skills are tied to how we're connected to ourselves and other people. So it's kind of that deeper level of how do you get yourself in a good place so that you can be good to be strong for yourself and for the people that you're working with. And that's kind of the premise that started it all.
When the subject matter is relatively new, we always face some hurdles. What were the key challenges did you face at that time?
I think the biggest challenge I had was that it was hard, but there wasn't really a vocabulary for it. Now if you say coach or mentor, or if you say spirituality, people couldn't really put those things together. And what I have seen over the years is it's become a little bit more of a different understanding. So people are more open to it. It's not about making yourself a spiritual person from the perspective of your religious beliefs necessarily, or the other big one I get is crystals. People think spirituality, they think crystals, but really when you look at the word, the root is A, to inspire, and B, breath. So my way of looking at it is with every breath you take, you get to choose how you're going to live your life, how you're going to treat people, what you're going to think. And so if you're talking spirit, you're talking how you're going to do that. And if you're a leader, that's a really great place to start, because then you're able to say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. And I'm taking this moment, taking a breath, counting to 10 to decide what's the best way to handle this situation or this person.
It is absolutely true on the breathing pattern that you just mentioned, on choices people have on how to live and lead their life. What I have seen is, even having this huge potential to make a difference, there are still tons of people out there that chose not to exercise their ability. How do you define this trend?
Well, the biggest thing that I have seen over the years, and this has been pretty constant, is fear. And, there's internal fear, which are things that you fear that may or may not be dangerous to you. And then there's external fears, like we've had COVID, we have a lot of fighting, a lot of divisiveness in the world right now. So whenever you are operating from fear, you're operating from that fight or flight mentality, as opposed to the responsive way you would respond with what I would call spirit, or with intentionality, or whatever vocabulary word you want to put there in order to identify that core part of yourself that's going to make the decisions about what you're doing and how you're doing it.
You brought an excellent point about the fear, right? How do you help someone identify that fear, that you want to extract it out from them, and then give that potential the individual wanted to have? So when they're unaware of their strengths, how'd you get into them, trying to tell them that, well, you have such a potential, take that fear out? How'd you do that?
Well, I think that's the second biggest challenge, is that people have to want to not be fearful, or to believe that they're actually fearful. There's a number of people I've worked with who do not want to believe that they actually have fear. And so what I find is that the best way that I move forward is with basically educating on how fear works. What's the difference between things like critical thinking and binary thinking, which we're becoming a society that's more binary thinking, and kind of topics like that. And then letting them, as they're learning these different concepts, figuring out ways to see how it applies to how they do things. And that way, whenever they kind of broaden their horizon of what's available out there as far as what you can think about and how you can think about something, then they can start to see, oh, okay, I see how I'm doing this now, and I understand that I'm more of a binary thinker, or things like that. So it's kind of unlocking those types of potential through understanding how the system works.
How do you feel when they have that transformation? Because, today they don't have any insight in there, and tomorrow they have all the insight, or like, you can measure like 50%, 100%, whatever.
Yeah, it's wonderful whenever they do. In fact, I've had a number of people tell me that it's almost like magic, because one minute they're thinking one way, and the next minute they're not mad at that person anymore, because they understand that broader, more critical thinking perspective. And it's just flipping a switch on how you think about it.
Yeah, many people, many coaches, they have their own niche. That's how they follow their path and, help other people gain their potential, discover their trueness, and, go from point A to point B in there, of course, right? So
Yeah.
in your experience, somebody who's listening to this conversation, if they wanted to follow your path, what are the advices that you have?
Well, I actually have, and this, I'm actually working on a course that's going to teach you everything. Because that's what I basically do whenever I'm working with people. Is there's three things that you can do that are actually what I believe, and I've seen it through the past 20 some years, that if you do these three things and if you can incorporate them into your day, that's what kind of holds spirit in place. It's kind of the glue for that. And that's, I think, the biggest challenge is learning those three and actually being able to apply them. Because whenever I say them, they sound, fairly easy, and but whenever you actually try to start doing them every day, it's for many people, it's kind of hard. So would you like me to share the three with you?
Yeah, absolutely. But at the same time, when you say it's very hard for some people, so what are the traits that the individual need to possess for them to learn these skills and then not just learn, but apply as well?
I think most of it's just wanting to learn it. I think so many people, I was doing something the other day and I was reading some research, and it was about self-awareness. And it was saying that, like, I don't remember the exact number, so please don't quote me, but it was a really high number, like 90 something percent of people believe they're self-aware. And from the research they've done, only about 10 to 15% actually are. So whenever you're looking at that ability to self-actualize and be self-aware of what you're doing and how it impacts you, how it impacts other people, and how it's impacting either the business or the family or whatever it is, then that's the challenge, is being self-aware to say, wow, everybody can learn something. It's not, even though I maybe think I'm a great leader or I am a great leader, there's nothing that says I can't learn something that's going to help me see things from a different perspective. We should always kind of be learning new things.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I've seen also is like they have their potential is limitless, I would say, right? So what
Yeah.
happens is like you go in one area and you kind of like you stay in that area for, I don't know, I've seen people just having the same job for the next like 30 years, 20 years. I mean, if they're good, if they're happy, that's fine. But
Yeah.
what they have realized is like, well, I have done everything. I've learned everything that I need to learn. I don't need to learn anything else. So, even they have such a potential. I've seen like when I go in corporate and, talk to various people, when I talk to these individuals who are sitting there for like 10, 20 years or so, and when I have that conversation, the notion is more like, well, Pravin, I mean, I know everything, I don't need to know anything more. And my question always is like, why not? If you have other potential, if you can do more than what you're doing, then you should go for it, right?
Yeah, yeah. And what is it they say? Learning is power. And so you can, when you unlock that part of yourself where you're able to say, I'm
Yeah.
curious about this. I'm going to go read up on it and learn about it so that I can integrate it into the work I'm doing or the people I'm working with. Then you've got tools that are accessible, and they're free, free access to all these tools that you can use to help you better understand why people do what they do, or how to handle a situation, things like that. But
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
just have the perception that we know it all, then we don't reach out to those tools that are basically online to help us find those kind of pathways.
Yeah. And then also what I've seen is like those people who are kind of like totally submerged into this corporate America, they've been learning the skills to apply within that institution only, right? So if you stay there for
Yeah,
like 15, 20 years, maybe the skills that you acquired may only be applicable within that industry, right? So
yeah,
once
yeah,
something goes south, whatever happens there, layoffs and all those things that are out there, once unfortunately if that happens to somebody and then when that individual comes out, then he or she is going to see the world in a totally different way. Like,
yeah,
okay,
totally,
what's
yeah,
what's out there for me? I thought like, well, I worked for 20 years and there's nothing else. The world is constantly changing, right? So new technology is coming up. So you always want to keep up with those kind of learning for you to have that growth, get that self-awareness, have that emotional intelligence in you. And that's the
yeah.
only way that you can do it. Dr. Reed, let's talk about the three things that you mentioned in your course real quick, please.
Yeah, I think, yeah, these are kind of the things that I teach everybody. And and if anybody has questions, obviously they can send them my way. But the first one is you've got to have what I'm starting to call now. I used to call it a personal intentional mission statement. I think that's a little misleading. I've started calling it kind of an anchor word. And whenever you're talking about how do we treat ourselves, how do we treat other people, stuff like that, you've got to have an anchor, a couple of words that are the behavior that you want to use to deal with people. So it's kind of your core version of yourself. So you would say friendly. I want to be a friendly person. I want to be a helpful person. If you say I want to be a grumpy person, that's a little harder, but you can make it work because you know a lot of grumpy people who people just adore them. But you got to have that consistency of how you're going to respond to things, and that's how you anchor yourself. And so the only one that I really kind of say you can't really use as far as an action word is happy, because I don't think you can really make yourself happy. That's just kind of a symptom of living the life that you're wanting to be in. And so pick a word like friendly, helpful, kind, any word, and that's going to be what I would say the culture of yourself, the culture of your organization. If you're doing it with a team, have everybody sit together and say, okay, as a company, what do we want to be? Are we going to be friendly? And what does that mean? Because then the second thing is you have to, the other part of that is you have to define it, because everybody's got a different meaning for what it means to be kind or friendly. Some people, kindness is, they talk to you even if they're frowning. For some people, it's over the top. Hey, how's it going? And so you got to really define what's kind of that acceptable realm. We're not going to yell at people. We're not going to berate people. We're not going to give people the silent treatment, things like that. We're going to talk about stuff, and that's going to set the kind of the agenda for how you're going to move forward, either as a person if you're doing it for personal development, or a team if you're doing it for either team building or leadership skills. So that's first one. And then the second one is your words and actions have to match. And there's two parts to that. There's your actions have to match your anchor words. So if you say, I want to be a kind person, but then you go around yelling at people, then you're fracturing. And so people are not going to trust that you're consistent or that you're actually that person that's friendly. Because when things fall in the ditch, that's when you see the real character of somebody, which would be, okay, they're friendly to me even when I've completely messed up. We still have to deal with the situation that's a problem, but at least they're not changing their behavior with me. They're using their anchor behavior to handle it. And that builds the trust and the authenticity because your actions are matching your words. And the other thing it has to be is if you make commitments. So if I say, I'll have that done by Friday, or I'll go get the groceries, or whatever that is. If I don't do that, or if I don't say, hey, sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it, communicating, then you lose trust and authenticity, because nobody's going to believe that you are going to do the things. And so that connectivity gets fractured whenever your words and actions don't match. And so the third one, this is the one that seems to be the biggest challenge, especially in our society today, because of the binary thinking, is not looking at people or situations as good or bad or wrong or right. They're different, and we have to respect the differences, but we also have to deal with the differences too. We have to figure out how to navigate that. And that's where that spirit connectivity part comes in, is how do we deal with situations or people that are different than ours, or that don't meet our expectations. And that's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are the three. Yeah,
no,
those are the three in
it.
a nutshell.
I love it. I love some of the words that you said here, like communication fractured. So when we're trying to put these two words together and make a meaning out of it, it really awesome. I mean, really, really good. The social awareness is something that people don't realize that, if I can do this, you should be doing that. So that's the mentality there, without understanding that particular individual.
Yeah. And I think the more we become a society of of technology too. When you think about technology, it's zeros and ones. I believe essentially, I'm not a computer whiz, but that you do have a very binary way that computers operate. And so I find it interesting, although I have no research on it, that people are becoming more binary in their thinking. And when I say binary, what I mean is good, bad. They think in terms of good, bad. You're either with me or against me. Critical thinking is more, wow, there's lots of solutions. Let's see if we can find one that works the best. And so when you get a lot of people thinking binarily, then that's when you have the wars or the fights or the conflict, because when you're doing conflict resolution, you're not doing it's he's wrong, he's wrong, he's right. It's what's the challenge we have here and how do we move forward from it.
Why we're in this situation, I would say, like, well, I mean, maybe there are so many different elements that are attached to it, but to summarize everything that you mentioned, I think there's a lack of education, right? Or how'd you put it together?
You know, First of all, it was a lot of reading because I was working on my degree many years ago. I was actually researching spirituality, and what I kept coming across over and over again was this interconnectivity to spirituality and how we form society, how we create community, all those kinds of things that you don't really think of whenever you're thinking of, okay, spirituality, you're thinking more, okay, what religion are they? And that can be an element of it. But if you're talking breath and inspire, with every breath you take, okay, we're building a community. What is that going to look like? With every breath we take, every minute that we're thinking of something. And the thing that's really interesting to me is it ties very heavily to our brain, which I'll do a quick thing here. I'll try not to go too long, but we have these little synapses in our brain that are electrical impulses, and that's how we make decisions about things. And so whenever you have these little synapses clicking along and fear is driving them, you've got a much different picture of what a community looks like, what a person looks like, than if they're operating without that fear level or that binary thinking of it's either wrong or right. If I'm saying the vocabulary of, wow, that person really thinks differently than I do. How am I going to navigate that? That's very different than, oh my gosh, he's wrong. What an idiot.
Right.
There's lots of components to that. There's a lot of stuff going on whenever you take a thought.
Thanks for sharing that. Let's pivot our conversation a little bit. Switch a gear here and talk about the ethics and leadership. You've taught leadership and ethics extensively. How would you define ethical leadership, and what are the key indicators of an ethical leader in today's complex world? Well, they have to deal with so many different things.
Yeah, that to me, that's always a real challenge, because questions like that, a lot of times, I don't know, and this is my third thing, there's no wrong or right way to do it. But I think that what you're looking for in my picture of that is what is fracturing things and what is strengthening things. So for me, ethics would be things that strengthen either a person or a community or a team, where everybody is working more synchronicity, but also for the benefit of society. Because when you're talking ethics, you're talking, how do I take the one thing I'm doing and apply it to the betterment or the health of the town, the community, the world, those broader pictures. And so I think each company has to set their own ethic agendas, and each person does. But they also have to say, okay, am I making decisions out of fear that are fracturing me, or am I making decisions out of insight that are strengthening me? And ethics comes more, I think, from the strengthening of things than from the fracturing. Or when I say that, I mean for the health of the universe. You can do something in a silo that's great for you. Okay, we're all going to steal this money together and it's going to work for everybody here because we're really happy about it. But if you take that to the broader picture and say, okay, how's that going to help the world? Or how's that going to help John over here who isn't in our scheme but still works for the company? How do you decide, is that strengthening the whole group, or am I just strengthening myself? And I think therein lies the challenge, is you can't really say one thing is ethical or not, because it may also be, it depends depending on the context, so.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
so
not
that's
like
the short answer.
yeah. It's not like it's ethical to me, but it may not be ethical to others. It cannot happen.
Right.
So
Exactly.
ethical is ethical, right? So people get into that ethical dilemma all the time, and
Yeah, there's lots of
sometimes
gray areas in ethics. In fact, the
yeah,
thing that's really interesting to me is a lot of times when I talk to people who have gotten kind of into trouble, it's not like one day they did it and the next day
yeah,
they didn't.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
normally like a creeping thing where they justify one thing and then that takes them a little bit further down the road and they justify another thing. And in their gut, that kind of that spirit place, they know they're not doing necessarily the thing that's going to be the healthiest for them, but because of fear or something like that, they keep doing it, and then all of a sudden they're in so deep they can't get out.
Thank you for putting them all together. I really appreciate it. Now let's talk about this DEI topic. I would like to see what are the pressing challenges the organizations are facing these days when we're talking about the diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Oh, well, for me, it's, I keep going back to it, but it's the binary thinking. If you're thinking in terms of, oh, that person's wrong because of the way they do something, or they're bad because they're that or this, then you're limiting everybody's ability to work together. You've probably seen it in organizations where somebody says, oh, that guy, he's from this country or that country, and they're stereotyped, and they end up having a way that people treat them because of who they are or what they are. And so you don't have that broader critical thing of saying, wow, this guy's really different than me, but I can understand that he brings some valuable skills and traits to it. So, when you're talking about the narrative of DEI, you're talking about how do we say things in a way that open the doors for people to have diversity. Not everybody has to be one thing and be incredibly successful. What you have to be able to look at is not the traits that make somebody feel safe with somebody, but the traits that show how they strengthen the organization. Because once again, a lot of that's related to fear. If you're in a company and there's a lot of diversity and you're very uncomfortable with people who aren't like you, then you're going to be more fearful, which makes you more binary thinking, which makes you say, oh, they're bad.
Yeah.
And it's more about being able to open your own self-awareness and your own mind to say, wow, it's okay for that person to be different from me. We can still have a discussion. We can still have a common goal. That's the big thing, is you got to find that common goal. What do we want to accomplish with this? And then you don't have any problem with DEI because everybody's going for the common goal as opposed to worrying what other people are,
Yeah. So, you are a photographer and also a songwriter.
Well, it's not my day job, but
Okay.
it's my hobby. Yeah, I love doing both of them, but I don't do them for a living. I actually do have some stuff that's on an app, but I have to be honest with you. I've kind of been kind of busy lately, so I haven't really
Right.
put a lot of time into it. But yeah, I do. I love when I travel. I love to do photography. And in fact, one of the things I really have enjoyed is I used to carry a camera with me, but and I'm doing a little plug for my phone, but I won't name the name of the phone, but I have a great phone with a camera on it. And it's great because technology has made it where I can take some pretty great pictures just with my phone. So whenever I'm traveling, if I see something that just intrigues me, and my funny one, which is I'm a fan of Banksy, is taking pictures of graffiti. So some people might say that's bad or wrong. That graffiti is not a good thing. But I don't know. Just to me. I love the fact that there's a place where people can go who normally would not be able to use their artistic skills, and actually turn something into art. Now, I prefer when it's something cute or funny, but I have found some just really, really interesting artwork that is graffiti, basically. So
what I was going to ask you was about this. The personal passion that you have, whether or not there is any level of influence or relationship between your personal passion and your professional work.
Yes. I think that to me, when you talk about leadership, you're talking about how people interact with each other, how they express themselves. One of the parts of spirit is inspire. So I think whenever you're talking, building a company, building yourself, it's like you've got this blank canvas and you can do basically whatever you want with it. And as long as you allow yourself to think that bigger picture, that broader sense of what it could be, you're just opening doors. That's why I think that things like traveling and art are so wonderful, even in the business world, because you open yourself up to things you've never seen before, and it helps you to understand that people are different.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, everybody's different. Dr. Reed, we have come towards the end of our show, so I'm just going to ask you if you have something that you want to talk about, please feel free to do that.
Well, I think really there's so much, that you can learn and talk about. But one of the things I can encourage people to do is if they have any questions about anything that I've been talking about, you can actually go online to MPUG, which is a project management organization, and I've written a number of articles for them that speak to a lot of these topics. And so if you want to learn more, you can go read some of those articles and learn more about it. And then you can reach out to me on my website, which is www.expectations with an S to reality, and that's a number 2.com. And I think that's also, if you Google Dr. Lynette Reed, it probably will come up. So that way, if people have questions, they can just reach out.
Thank you so much for that insight as well. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was good to talk to you.
You were listening to a conversation between Dr. Lynette Reed and Pravin Sharma at Insight Ignite Coaching's Coaching Voices podcast. You can contact Dr. Reed at expectations2reality@icloud.com or simply by visiting her LinkedIn page. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Coaching Voices podcast. I hope today's conversation gave you valuable insights into the world of coaching and leadership. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It helps others find the show and supports us in continuing to bring you inspiring content. Do not forget to share this episode with anyone you think might benefit from the discussion. And if you're looking to explore coaching further or have any questions, please feel free to connect with us. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep growing, keep leading, and stay curious.